Have you ever wondered what it takes to build your own HR information system? Well, in the past, when I worked at IBM, it took us over a year to build and $2 million. But this week, I'm gonna try to do it under 8 hours and 0 lines of code. I'm going to take you through the steps and my thought process for how I build information systems and databases. I'm going to dissect requirements, deploy a server, build a database, and even hook it up to a business intelligence tool. Let's take a look at the requirements that I have to deal with. I've got to build a database that's going to have an HR related information. It's going to need personnel roles and assignments. Okay, so first of all, hosting and infrastructure. The database should be hosted on their internal servers, so that way they can have the ultimate privacy. Their data is not shared on any cloud software. For building purposes, I can do that on my own servers. So user access and permissions. We need to be able to have 50 concurrent users. They need to have role-based access for each of the different HR personnel. User-friendly interface. Yeah, if you know how to use a spreadsheet, you can use these types of databases. Then it's going to be web-based access. Pre-built templates for common queries and reports should be available to simplify data and extraction. The system should allow create, read, and update and delete. Yep, we can do that. Well, next up is this employee table and all the different types of tables. I went ahead and copied over all of this information into an Excel sheet so it's easier to read. Okay, so looks like we're working with some employee related information. Got name, birthday, gender. All right, so let's figure out which tables do we actually need to build, what information we're just going to have to create a secondary table for or just look up for. So this looks like it could be just another table. This is the department. So as departments grow, depending on how many departments we have, we can just keep growing this table. All right, so we'll build a second table for that. All right, the ships table. So Nebuchadnezzar logos, and I don't even know how to pronounce this one. So this will have a ships table, assignments. Okay, so this is going to be probably more like a relationship table where we have the employees and they're going to have different type of assignments over the years. So I think this table will just keep growing with the different type of tasks and assignments with start date and end date. The training, this is going to be its own table, and then the employees that have taken the trainings. And next up is security clearance. Okay, so I'm wondering if we need to just build a drop down for this or have its own individual table. We'll have to take a look at that. Then the employee clearance is okay. Seems like that we need to have a clearance level. I'm just creating like a to-do list, kind of a check mark to make sure that I capture those requirements. And then for the technical requirements, I've been able to capture something from here. We'll also need to have some export features through Excel and CSV and JSON, depending on where we're going to be doing extraction from. But we'll have access to the underlying database, which I think you're going to really like when I show it to you. I need to build this in a place where my client can access it. I have multiple instances of this tool running on my internal servers, but they're not exposed to outside my network. So I need to build into a place where my client can also access and we can build together on it. So I'm going to be using a service called Railway where I can go to deploy a template and put in base row here. And we can see that it's going to deploy these 3 services. It's going to have base row, and which is going to run on top of Postgres and Redis. So Postgres is going to be the database underneath, and you can come here and I can configure different variables that I might need. After you hit deploy, we are brought to this page here, and this is where we can see the service that is running and is deployed successfully. We just need to click that and get the URL open, and we can create an account here. We can name this workspace for our client. Now this part is pretty cool because we've already done a little bit of the work beforehand. We'll call this employee. Awesome. Now we've got our table loaded into the database, and what we got here is our whole grid. You can see all the data was imported, and there's some good stuff and some bad stuff here though. And the good thing is all of our data was made it over, but the downside is that everything was imported as text. So we'll have to fix that. We'll have to make things drop down wherever it needs to be a drop down. We'll have to convert this, for example, into a date field. The other thing is that none of the other data was imported, right? So we had our whole spreadsheet with additional tables, but none of those other things were imported. So that's a pretty easy fix. Let's just take care of at least one of the other tables. Let me show you. We can just choose paste option here. Let's do the ship table. I'm gonna paste it and you can see the data made it over. So the first column is just going to become our primary key. So there's our primary key and then there's our description. And after we load all of our tables, we'll be able to start linking these tables into this here, for example. So assigned ship, we'll be able to put this column, we can make it a linked one, and then we can link all the ships here. Okay, so I've got this image here, this column. I'm going to convert this image column into a file format. What this is going to allow me to do is take Morpheus and put a picture for him. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'll just create 2 columns here for address and zip. And I just copy pasted that over from Excel. Let's do the new table. I'm going to continue adding additional tables in here, but just know that there are some other ways of adding the data as well. And additionally, I'm going to just create additional records in those tables. Now, if we go back, we'll see that our employee table also has an assignment. We can see all the information in one place. Okay, I've got a new table called employee training. I'm going to link this with the employee table and the training table. So I just have one more field to go. I'm going to do completion date. So let's say Morpheus completed the training. Combat. Engineering basics is not part of the training. Okay, there we go. We can just hide that. So we can just hide it if we don't want to see anything. Okay, let's enhance this data. We've got a couple different things that is going on. Because we imported our data with a copy paste into the table. So now we've got all these text fields, but some of these are lookup fields. So we can convert that, and the database software is actually pretty smart. The base row automatically does a lot of that for you. So if I just change the gender field to single select, and it automatically makes that change. And same thing with this rank. Because we don't have a rank table, we'll just go ahead and do the same thing. Make it single select, picks the colors, great. Now here's the tricky part, because we do have a table for department. In big organizations, you could have like hundreds of departments. It's good that we have the department table. And I did add civilian affairs in here because this was not originally provided in the sample data. So to do that, I created a department linked table, linked to a department table, and I'm just calling it table 2. But the cool thing is I don't need to click on it one at a time. I can just copy paste, and now this link is automatically created. And just like that, this link is selected. And now if you go to the department table, boom, we've got all these people that are in that department showing up. And of course we could turn this link off if we don't want it. Now it's starting to look a lot more usable. So same thing, we'll do this. Change this to single select. I can change the color. And we can do the same kind of thing for the ship. Another thing we might want to add is, this way we know which of the employees are active and inactive if they have left the company. That's actually kind of interesting when we did the copy paste from Excel, because some of that data for date join did not come over. Let me show you. Okay, what I had to do was in my Excel file, the birth date is correct because of just how the year and the month and day works out. But for this, I converted this into a long date. So it's a little bit easier and more obvious for base row to figure out which date it is. So I just pasted the long date in here and it converted it into the date properly. Okay, I want to enhance this data a little bit. I want to show that I can add multiple records all at once. So we've got orientation from employees for when the date they joined. So I'm going to go ahead and take all of that data, copy it into the grid directly in base row. And when I paste that in here, all of my data shows up, and the lookup field also shows how many hours that this training was for. Let's take a look at the progress so far. I've got most of my database set up, but there's still some cleanup I need to do. I realized while I was testing through some of this, that ship table, I completely imported that wrong. So I need to fix that. In the training table, now this training table is supposed to be a place where we keep all of our trainings that we have in a company, but then also just add different trainings that are offered and maybe the number of duration. Right now, the way we have this set up, we keep getting all these employee ID or the record IDs for everyone who's taken that training. And it's kind of started to get annoying. So I want to go ahead and remove that so it's easier on the database and the viewers and the users. So the way I just do that is in this link here, this column's linking to that training table. So I'm just going to go into the edit field and I'm going to uncheck this and click save. So if I go back to the training table, I no longer have that UUID. Okay, I've taken the data from Excel and reconfigured a little bit I fixed the ship table, and I also took the stuff from employee table to see what other ships there are that I didn't get in the lookup table. So I added those, and I also added like a last modified date, which is built in to the database. Now for employee, I'm going to go in here and find the assigned ship. I've created a linked table here. So it's going to link to the ship table, and I'm creating a relationship. So all I need to do now is copy this, paste it in here, and now you can see there's a gray box behind it, and that means it's linked back to the ship table, and I can see everyone that is assigned to that ship. So now I can delete this column and we're good to go. Let's take a look at the requirements again, because this right here is the hardest things to accomplish. That's one of the coolest things about base row that I love using. Now the question is, how does that even happen? So if we hover over any of these tables, you're going to see that there's a little thing that pops up at the bottom there, table 644. So we know in the back end, we can access that table and we can connect to it. I'm going to show you now that I can connect to the backend database. I can do this because I'm self-hosting on my own servers. This enables me to access all the data behind the database. This means if I ever want to stop using base row, or if I want to integrate this database with other systems, I can do that. I always get to keep my data. And one of our other requirements is that we need to be able to connect through Power BI or Tableau, some sort of a reporting BI tool. What I've got here is connection to that. After I made the connection, I'm able to access the table. So I've imported that table, and I can even rename those columns now, because those columns are all very hard to read the way they are in the database, but I can just rename them in Power BI. I can export this, as well as I can start building my charts, my graphs on here. And I can build a full dashboard about my employee system. And I can integrate this with my other systems, other data sources in my company. In just 8 hours, we've gone from spreadsheets to a working database system. All of that is connected to an analytics system. I think it's pretty incredible for businesses to use this type of system because it saves so much time and it makes data 100 times more usable. If you want to start using your data at your company in a much better and organized way, then definitely check out this video next.